defined this country for the last how many decades. But we also have to remember that there are going to be ebbs and flows in this struggle, so it's not just going to be up, and away. And that this also means there are new implications as well as challenges for the labor movement and the left within this country. So what has started in Wisconsin as a battle to retain collective bargaining rights has actually deepened and is radicalizing people on a very massive scale. So I'll have three main areas of focus. First, a report, then the significance of what is happening and what this battle could potentially mean for the reemergence of class struggle and class politics on a wider scale in this country. So I was in Madison from February 28th to March 2nd, and I can just say that the level of solidarity there among people was absolutely amazing and inspiring, like nothing I've ever seen. Actually, I want to quote, I'm not sure if the article is in this one, it's on the website, an article from Leah Petty. She's a comrade from New York, pickup socialist worker, read it online, it's great. She said that for the first time in my life, I experienced class solidarity on a mass scale. And I can also say that that's what I experienced while occupying the Capitol building with hundreds and thousands of other people. There were people from all different sectors of the workforce, students, anti-war vets, young and old, and of many different races, as well as people from all over the country and other countries. When I arrived on Saturday morning, the crowd outside was already huge, and the numbers swelled to around 100,000 throughout the day. I went into the Capitol and began selling our newspaper and talking to people, and people were very open to talking about their own struggles in their daily lives, as well as having a very quick identification to the struggles going on in Egypt, the revolution going on in Egypt and elsewhere throughout the Middle East and Africa. And they wanted to talk about what are the alternatives to capitalism, what are the alternatives to living in a world where the poor people always pay for the shit the rich people do while creating the stuff that the rich people live on, you know? Okay, so at that point, I only had to wait a few minutes to get into the building. The place was packed with people, and there were signs on like literally every surface, like, you know, the whole world is changing from Wisconsin to Egypt, and like this is what class consciousness looks like. This is like the Capitol building, pretty amazing. And within minutes, I was being propelled into the center of the rotunda. You know, there were multiple floors going up, and they had what was called the People's Mic, where anyone could go down and speak. And so I talked. You know, I said I was from Texas, and the Texas workers supported the struggle going on in Wisconsin against austerity, because these measures are going to be implemented throughout the United States, and that Wisconsin, what's going on there, really signifies, really shows us how to struggle back. It shows workers like what the necessary means are in order to start winning the world we want to live in. So I also spoke about the revolution in Egypt and how all of these struggles were part of the same struggle. It was really well received, and like, you know, thousands of people started chanting, "The Workers United will never be divided," and then sing "Solidarity Forever." There were, you know, firefighters coming through with bagpipes, and the way the building was set up, it just like amplified throughout it. And like this low-income high school of drumline of all black students came in, and they just fucking rocked the house. It was so electrifying. And there was also a food distribution set up inside. Medics, they had you know, medic station, and a free store where you could go to get things like tampons and diapers. So homeless people were also sleeping inside the building with us to get away from the snow and the freezing weather outside. So, you know, it really was like the workers and the oppressed's house. We were taking it over. And people left their belongings everywhere throughout the day, and I never heard of any incidents of violence or theft. You know, like, it goes against the grain of everything we hear about, you know, working people and poor people just being like savage, but here's like a concrete example of us working together to try to, you know, make life better. So in two of the restrooms, this is really cool, there were big signs put up thanking the Capitol workers for keeping our house clean. And the Teamsters were buzzing people in. were identifying with people in Egypt as their brothers and sisters, as well as like you could go to I left the building like 3 times, go to a coffee shop, go anywhere, and everyone's like, what's going on at the Capitol? What's going on inside? Let's talk about politics. Oh, you have that fist. What is that? Is that a social, like, you know, like people had heard of the socialism conference. It was really exciting. I'm sorry, I'm kind of rambling, but the only opposition I actually saw were about 12 teabaggers and a crowd of 100,000. So, you know, they were numerically very outnumbered. And I don't want to paint this as like a picture of we're up and away, but, you know, the experience there was unlike anything I've ever seen. And then we heard they were going to start clearing out the building, so they started more tightly restricting how many people could get in. And at the end of one of the nights, we were having an organizing meeting about how we could try to, this was on Sunday, they were going to try to clear the building out so Walker could release his budget on Tuesday in the building without there being thousands of people there, like behind him with signs and stuff. We organized, the ISO organized a meeting inside the building. And throughout the night, more people kept coming and joining in. And at first, the tone was very much, we're going to have to give up the building or get arrested. But we were actually able to shift that into a direction of, no, we need to try to build this thing as large as possible tomorrow and see if we can hold the Capitol building. Because, you know, the symbolic importance of it, as well as having like a 24-hour organizing spot, like in the day you have more like protests, and then at night people break up into meetings. Anyway, trying to learn how to, like, you know, democratically run things. The next day the cops started regulating a 2-out, 1-in policy to try to thin our numbers, but it was actually a cop that informed us of what they were doing. So we, you know, just made sure people weren't going out as much. So on Sunday, we started hearing that the Democrats and some union leaders had agreed to give up the Capitol building. And they were, some people may have seen Democratic Representative Hulsey, who, you know, at every turn he tries to present himself as a friend of the working class. He got down into the center of the rotunda and was urging people to walk out with him, to give up the Capitol building with him. And some people cheered him. I booed him very loudly. The ISO and this other group called MECHA, it's a really radical group. Our members went down into the center and were urging people to try to hold the building. So at like 3 o'clock, they start playing these announcements over the loudspeakers to get out of the building. Some people are trying to leave, and other people were like going up. We had lines of people going up to confront the cops to try to get them to open the doors to let the thousands of people that were inside the building. Also outside, there was a similar dynamic going on between Democrats and conservative union members, and then the more radical elements of the crowd. Some of them were the slogan was, we are leaving, not retreating. So we would counter with, whose house? Our house. And then, you know, within labor meetings, ISO members have also been trying to push what's happening there, union members, into a more radical direction. I'm going to have to skip through a bunch of this, but, you know, needless to say, on March 1st, Walker released his budget, which strips like Medicaid and it's called Badger Care, transit, all sorts of like really deplorable things. They're really deep cuts that he's trying to make. People slept outside the night before in the freezing cold because the building was on virtual lockdown despite its illegality and the court injunction to actually keep the building open. There were about 50 people that were still occupying the building at that time. Two iron workers from Michigan on that day led hundreds of people to the Capitol building, where they were almost able to push past police lines but didn't quite have the forces to do so. And there was a rally of thousands of people despite not having been protest. Last week, thousands of farmers were driving their tractors to the state capitol to demonstrate in solidarity with the workers there. And on March